I'd gotten used to Marcus's comments over the years. My older brother had a gift for making everything sound like a gentle insult wrapped in familial concern. At 32, he'd built what he called a respectable career in commercial real estate, managing properties for a mid-sized firm in Connecticut. Nothing extraordinary but stable. Predictable. The kind of thing our parents could explain to their friends without confusion. Me. I was the family question mark. Still playing around with those stocks? Dad asked at Christmas 3 years ago, his tone suggesting I was collecting baseball cards rather than managing portfolios. Something like that, I'd replied, cutting into my turkey. The truth was more complicated. After graduating from Wharton at 23, I'd taken an analyst position at a boutique investment firm in Manhattan. Long hours, brutal deadlines, the kind of environment where you either evolved quickly or burned out spectacularly. I chose evolution. By 26, I was managing a small team. By 28, I'd been headhunted by one of the largest investment banks in the world. But explaining that to my family felt increasingly pointless. They'd formed their narrative about me, the youngest son, always tinkering with computers and numbers, never quite settling into something real, like Marcus's property management or my sister Sarah's dental practice. In their minds, I worked in some anonymous office building, doing something vaguely related to finance that they didn't need to understand. I never corrected them. Partly because the conversations exhausted me, but mostly because I'd learned that silence was simpler than pride. You should talk to Marcus about career stability, Mom suggested last Thanksgiving, her voice dripping with maternal concern. He could give you some pointers about building something lasting. Marcus had nodded sagely from across the table, his expression radiating big brother wisdom. Happy to help. Little bro, real estate might seem boring, but it's solid. Not like those risky stock market games. I'd smiled into my mashed potatoes. Marcus's firm managed approximately 47 properties across 3 counties. The division I oversaw managed investment portfolios worth north of $80 billion. But who was counting? The annual family gatherings became exercises in strategic patience. I'd listen to Marcus explain basic market concepts with the confidence of someone who'd skimmed a few Wall Street Journal articles. I'd nod along when Sarah suggested I settle down and find something stable between descriptions of her thriving dental practice. I'd accept Dad's concerns about my lack of direction, with the same calm I used in boardroom negotiations worth hundreds of millions. They meant well, I reminded myself. They just didn't know. My girlfriend Rachel found the whole dynamic fascinating. You could just tell them, she'd say, curled up in my Tribeca penthouse after another awkward family dinner. Show them your actual job title. Your compensation package. Something. Why? I'd counter, staring out at the Manhattan skyline. It wouldn't change anything. But I knew she was right about one thing. The gap between their perception and reality had grown absurd. Last month, I'd testified before a Senate committee about market regulation reform. 2 weeks ago, I'd been featured in a Bloomberg profile about the future of quantitative investing. Yesterday, I'd closed a deal that would reshape how pension funds approached emerging markets. And tomorrow, I'd go to Dad's retirement party and listen to Marcus explain how mutual funds work. The party was Marcus's idea, of course. Dad was retiring after 38 years as an accountant for a regional manufacturing company, a perfectly respectable career that he'd approached with quiet dedication. Marcus had rented out the banquet room at a decent hotel in Stamford, invited about 60 people, and appointed himself master of ceremonies. This is how you honor someone properly, he told me 3 weeks ago during the planning call. Not like those casual dinners you probably do with your office friends. I'd bidden back a laugh. Last month, I'd hosted a dinner for 12 sovereign wealth fund managers at Per Se. The wine bill alone exceeded what Marcus was spending on this entire party. But I simply said, "Sounds nice, Marcus. I'll be there." The evening started predictably. I arrived in a simple navy suit, expensive but understated, and was immediately intercepted by Aunt Carol. "Michael. Still doing that computer stock thing? Still working in finance, yes. Well, it's never too late to find something more substantial. Look at Marcus, he's doing so well with those buildings." I smiled and accepted a glass of champagne from a passing waiter. Across the room I could see Marcus holding court with several of Dad's old colleagues, gesturing expansively as he explained something. Probably real estate. Possibly the economy. Definitely something he'd half understood from a podcast. Sarah found me 20 minutes later. Like, how's the trading going? I don't really do trading anymore, I said carefully. Oh, did you get promoted? Like to senior trader or something? Something like that. She patted my shoulder sympathetically. Well, every step forward counts. I just hired a new hygienist. Maybe you know the feeling of building a team. I managed 743 people across 4 continents, but I just nodded. Yeah, team building is important. The real trouble started during dinner. Marcus had arranged for a formal sit-down meal, complete with assigned seating that placed me at a table with several of his real estate colleagues and their spouses. It became clear within minutes that he'd positioned this as an opportunity for them to mentor me. So Michael works in finance, Marcus announced to the table, his tone suggesting he was introducing a nephew's lemonade stand. Stocks and stuff. I keep telling him to consider something more tangible like property. A silver-haired man named Doug leaned forward with the intensity of someone about to impart profound wisdom. The stock market is a young man's game. All that volatility, those wild swings. Real estate is where you build genuine wealth. Steady appreciation, tangible assets. Interesting perspective, I said, sipping my wine. It was mediocre. Probably a $30 bottle that the hotel charged $84. I'd had better at airport lounges. I've been in commercial real estate for 30 years, Doug continued. Started with nothing, built a portfolio of properties across the Northeast. That's real success, something you can see and touch. Marcus nodded enthusiastically. Exactly what I've been telling Mike. He's smart with numbers, but he needs to think bigger picture. Long-term stability. I could have mentioned that last quarter, my division's investment strategies had outperformed the commercial real estate sector by a factor of 6. I could have noted that the tangible assets Doug was so proud of were increasingly difficult to monetize in the current credit environment. I could have explained that the real estate holdings Marcus managed were partially financed by funds from portfolios not unlike the ones I oversaw. Instead, I said, real estate is definitely important to the economy. The conversation continued in this vein throughout the salad course. Doug's wife offered suggestions about getting serious with my career. One of Marcus's colleagues recommended a course on real estate fundamentals. Sarah chimed in periodically with comments about how her dental practice proved the value of serving real people with real needs. Marcus was in his element, playing the successful older brother guiding his wayward sibling. Michael's always been more abstract in his thinking, he explained to the table. Great with computers and numbers, but he needs to learn about the real world. The tangible economy. You should come visit my office, Doug offered generously. See how actual business gets done. Not just moving money around on screens. I was formulating a polite response when Dad approached the table. He looked happy, genuinely content in a way I hadn't seen in years. Retirement suited him. He pulled up a chair between Marcus and me. Hi boys, he said warmly, putting a hand on each of our shoulders. Marcus, this party is wonderful. Thank you for organizing it. Of course, Dad. Only the best for you. Dad turned to me. And Michael, I'm glad you could make it. I know you're busy with your stock things. There it was again. My stock things. As if I spent my days day trading penny stocks from a basement apartment rather than directing investment strategies that influenced global markets. Wouldn't miss it, Dad. You've earned this celebration. Marcus seized the moment. Actually, Dad, we were just talking about Michael's career path. I think he could benefit from something more grounded. Maybe accounting like you? Or real estate. Something with real value. Several people at the table nodded supportively. Sarah added, we all just want to see Mike settled into something substantial. He's so smart, he could do anything if he just focused on something real. Dad looked at me with that expression of parental concern I'd seen 1,000 times. They have a point, son. You're 31 now. Time to think about building something lasting. All that market speculation. It's not a real foundation for life. I took another sip of mediocre wine. The temptation to set the record straight flickered through my mind, but what was the point? In 2 hours I'd drive back to Manhattan, back to my actual life. They could keep their comfortable narrative. I appreciate the concern, I said evenly. I'm doing okay though. Oi isn't enough, Marcus pressed, warming to his subject. The champagne had made him bolder. You need to stop playing pretend with these stockbroker fantasies. Get into something legitimate. I could even help you get started in real estate. Maybe an entry-level position at my firm. You'd have to start at the bottom obviously, but it would be real work. Entry-level real estate, I repeated slowly. Don't take it the wrong way. You're just not established yet in any real field. Better to start building something concrete now than waste more years shuffling numbers around. Doug nodded sagely. Tough love, but that's what family is for. Marcus is trying to help you. The whole table was watching me now, their expressions mixing pity with encouragement, the way you might look at someone finally accepting difficult truths about their life. Dad's face showed concern. Sarah looked sympathetic. Marcus radiated big brother magnanimity. I was about to respond when I felt my phone vibrate. I glanced down at the screen. Priority. Jakarta situation escalating. Board requesting immediate guidance. Global markets reacting. Then another. Chairman Chin. Michael, need you on emergency call in 15 minutes. G7 finance ministers asking questions. And another. Bloomberg. Can we get your comment on the Asian market developments? Your name is coming up in every conversation. I silenced the phone and looked up to find Marcus still talking. And that's the difference between playing around with stocks and actually building something. Real estate, accounting, dentistry, these are professions people respect. Not sitting in a cubicle watching numbers on a screen. A cubicle, I said quietly. Well, whatever your office setup is. The point is it's not substantial. You're 31, Mike. Time to grow up and get serious about your career. The table murmured agreement. Even Dad nodded slightly, his expression pained but supportive of Marcus's tough love. I was forming a careful response when I heard a commotion near the banquet room entrance. The hotel manager was gesturing urgently to someone, his expression confused and slightly panicked. Then I saw her. Jennifer, my executive assistant, striding through the door with the purposeful intensity that meant something serious was happening. She spotted me immediately and made a direct line to our table, ignoring the startled looks from other guests. Jennifer was ex-military, Stanford MBA, spoke 4 languages and managed my schedule with terrifying efficiency. She also knew better than to interrupt my personal time unless it was genuinely critical. Sir, she said, reaching the table slightly out of breath. I apologize for the interruption, but the global board needs their CEO immediately. Jakarta's situation has gone beyond containment protocols. We have finance ministers from 7 countries requesting guidance, and markets are responding poorly to the leadership vacuum. The table had gone completely silent. Marcus stared at Jennifer, then at me, his expression frozen mid-smile. CEO of what? Jennifer blinked, seeming to notice for the first time that she was addressing me in front of what was clearly a family gathering. Of Goldman Sachs, sir. The bank. Your bank. The silence deepened. Doug's wine glass paused halfway to his mouth. Sarah's fork hovered over her salmon. Dad's expression cycled through confusion, disbelief, and something that might have been recognition. There's some mistake, Marcus said, his voice strained. Mike works in finance, but he's not. I mean, he can't be. I'm sorry, who are you? Jennifer asked with polite confusion. His brother. And I'm telling you there's been some mix-up. He works in investments or trading or something. He's not the CEO of Goldman Sachs. That's ridiculous. Jennifer turned to me, her expression now carefully neutral in a way that suggested she was reassessing the situation. Sir, should I explain? Or would you prefer to handle the Jakarta situation first? I stood up slowly, buttoning my jacket. Give me the summary while I walk. Marcus, Dad, everyone, I apologize for cutting the evening short. Wait, Sarah said, her voice sharp. What's happening? Jennifer, right? Who exactly do you think Michael is? Jennifer pulled out her phone, pulled up something and showed it to the table. Michael Chin, Chairman and CEO of Goldman Sachs. Appointed 18 months ago at 30, youngest CEO in the firm's history. Previously Managing Director of the Global Investment Research Division. Masters from Wharton, graduated top of his class. Senate testimony last month on financial regulation. Bloomberg's list of most influential people in global finance, ranked 14th. She scrolled through several images. Me testifying before Congress, me shaking hands with the German finance minister, me speaking at the World Economic Forum in Davos, me on the cover of Institutional Investor magazine. Doug's face had gone pale. That Michael Chin? The one who restructured sovereign debt for 3 countries last year. The same, Jennifer confirmed, her voice taking on a subtle edge that suggested she was enjoying this more than professional decorum should allow. He's also on the Federal Reserve's Advisory Committee, the Council on Foreign Relations, and the board of directors for 2 Fortune 100 companies. Marcus made a strange choking sound. No, that's not possible. He works in some office. He does stock stuff. He's not. He manages investment operations across 47 countries, Jennifer continued, her tone now crisp and factual. Oversees approximately 743 employees. Last quarter, his division's decisions influenced approximately $80 billion in global investment positioning. He reports directly to the board and coordinates with finance ministers from G20 nations on market stability issues. But he drives a normal car, Sarah whispered as if this fact disproved everything. A Toyota, Dad added, looking dazed. He drives a Toyota Camry. I own a Toyota Camry, I corrected gently. I also own a Bentley, but I don't drive it to family events because I knew you'd ask questions I didn't want to answer. Jennifer checked her phone. Sir, the board is now on hold. Chairman Chin is getting impatient, and the Financial Times is running a story about leadership response times to the Jakarta situation. We need to move. I looked around the table. Marcus had the expression of a man watching his understanding of reality collapse. Sarah's mouth was opening and closing wordlessly. Doug looked like he wanted to disappear into his chair. Dad just stared at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. The cubicle thing was particularly funny, I said to Marcus, keeping my tone conversational. I have a corner office on the 42nd floor with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lower Manhattan. There's a private elevator. The office itself is about the size of this entire banquet room. Why didn't you tell us? Dad asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I tried initially. 3 years ago at Christmas I mentioned being promoted. Mom suggested I talk to Marcus about building career stability. Last Thanksgiving I explained I'd been appointed to the CEO position. Sarah recommended I find something substantial, like her dental practice. After a while, correcting you seemed more exhausting than just letting you think what you wanted to think. Jennifer cleared her throat delicately. Sir, with respect, Jakarta. Right. I turned to Dad. I really am sorry to leave early. This is your night and you deserve better. But there's a genuine crisis that needs handling, and apparently I'm the only one who can make certain decisions right now. What kind of crisis? He asked, still looking stunned. Currency stabilization issue in Southeast Asian markets that could cascade into a broader emerging market problem if not addressed in the next few hours. Fairly technical. Nothing that would interest people focused on tangible assets like real estate. I let that hang in the air for a moment while Doug's face turned an impressive shade of red. Jennifer was already on her phone. I have the car waiting. Your secure line is active. I've briefed the Frankfurt and Hong Kong teams. They're standing by with options. Marcus, I said, turning to my brother, that entry-level position you offered? In real estate at your firm? I appreciate the thought, but I'm fairly committed to my current role. Though if you ever need investment guidance for your company's portfolio, and you should, given your current exposure to commercial mortgage-backed securities in the current rate environment, my office would be happy to provide some direction. His face had gone from shocked to mortified. Mike, we didn't know. I know you didn't. That was rather the point of this whole dynamic, wasn't it? You didn't know and you didn't ask. You just assumed. Sarah found her voice. You let us think you were nobody. For years. I let you think what you wanted to think, I corrected. There's a difference. Every time I tried to explain, you talked over me or changed the subject or offered advice about finding something real. Eventually I stopped trying. Jennifer touched my elbow gently. Sir, we really need to go. The Treasury Secretary is now involved. The actual Treasury Secretary? Dad asked weakly. We have lunch monthly to discuss policy coordination, I said. She's probably wondering why I'm not responding to her messages. I pulled out my wallet and placed $500 bills on the table. This should cover my portion of the dinner. Dad will celebrate properly when I have more time. Everyone else, enjoy your evening discussing tangible assets and real careers. As I turned to leave, Marcus grabbed my arm. Wait. Wait. All those times we gave you advice, lectured you about stability, treated you like you didn't know what you were doing. Yes. We must have seemed like complete idiots. I considered lying, being gracious, smoothing everything over. But the truth felt more appropriate. You seemed like family who had decided I was a certain kind of person and weren't interested in evidence to the contrary. Which is fine, most people do that. But it does mean I stopped sharing parts of my life with you because sharing them became exhausting. Doug cleared his throat. For what it's worth, Mr. Chin, I apologize. My comments about young men and the stock market were inappropriate. Actually, your comments about real estate appreciation in the current environment were more problematic from a technical standpoint, but I appreciate the apology. Jennifer was practically vibrating with urgency now. Sir, Jakarta is not getting better on its own. I followed her toward the door, aware that the entire banquet room had gone quiet, watching us leave. Just before we exited, I heard Marcus say to no one in particular, "He's the CEO of Goldman Sachs. Our little brother is the CEO of Goldman Sachs." Sarah's voice shaky. "He was on the cover of Bloomberg. How did we not see this?" And Dad very quietly, "Because we weren't looking." The hotel lobby was chaos. Jennifer had apparently arrived with a small team who were now coordinating logistics. There was a black SUV outside with diplomatic plates, and I could see my security detail trying to be inconspicuous while clearly preparing for an urgent departure. "Brief me," I said as we walked. Jennifer pulled up screens on her tablet. Jakarta's currency intervention failed at 6 p.m. local time. Contagion spreading to Thailand and Malaysia. European markets opening in 4 hours with high uncertainty. The IMF is making unhelpful statements and China is being opportunistic. Treasury wants a unified response, but Frankfurt and London are disagreeing on approach. Why do they need me specifically? Because when everyone disagrees, you're the only one they all trust to make the hard call. Also because you're the one who set up the original Southeast Asian stability protocols, so everyone assumes you have contingency plans. Do I? You have 3 contingency plans. I've sent them to your secure tablet. We reached the SUV. Jennifer opened the door and handed me the tablet while I slid inside. Your video call with the board starts in 4 minutes. I've scheduled an emergency meeting with your division heads for 10 p.m. The Treasury Secretary wants a call at 10:45. And you have Bloomberg, Reuters, and the Financial Times all requesting statements. Draft a holding statement for the media. Standard stuff about monitoring the situation and coordinating with international partners. Nothing specific until we have the board's input. Already drafted, waiting for your approval. The SUV pulled away from the hotel. Through the tinted windows, I could see people gathered near the entrance. Some of the party guests who had followed us out, watching the departure with confused expressions. Marcus stood in the center, still looking dazed. My phone buzzed with a call from the board chairman. I answered, "Andrew. I'm en route to the office. Give me the 30-second version." While he talked, I pulled up the market data on my tablet, scanning through the numbers with practice speed. The situation was bad but containable if we moved quickly. I started drafting mental notes for talking points. Jennifer sat across from me, simultaneously managing 3 different message threads on her phone while pulling up additional briefing documents on her laptop. "Sir, just so I understand, your family didn't know about your position?" "They knew I worked in finance. They chose not to know the details." "For how long?" "Pretty much my entire career. They had a narrative about who I was, and information that contradicted that narrative got filtered out." She looked up from her phone, her expression thoughtful. "That must have been frustrating. Mostly just tedious. Though I'll admit there was something darkly amusing about my brother offering me an entry-level position in real estate. I may have enjoyed revealing your actual position slightly more than was professionally appropriate." "You think?" He grinned. The look on his face when I mentioned the Senate testimony was priceless. I have military training in maintaining composure under pressure, and I almost laughed. My phone buzzed again, a text from Dad. "We need to talk. Tomorrow? Please." Another from Sarah. "I'm so sorry. I had no idea. None of us did." And from Marcus. "I feel like an idiot. Can we start over?" I silenced the phone and focused on the Jakarta data. Personal relationships could wait. Right now I had markets to stabilize and a crisis to manage. The fact that my family had just discovered I was actually good at my job was secondary to the fact that several national economies were depending on me to make the right calls in the next few hours. To the office? I asked Jennifer. 18 minutes if traffic cooperates. Have security clear my floor. I want my top 12 people in the conference room the moment I arrive. Get Frankfurt and Hong Kong on standby video. And someone needs to tell the Treasury Secretary I'll call her at 10:30 instead of 10:45. We'll need to move faster than originally planned. Already done, already arranged, and she's been notified. This was my real life. Not family dinners and lectures about stability. Not well-meaning advice from people who didn't understand my actual work. This, making decisions that influenced global markets, coordinating with governments, managing crises that most people would never hear about but that affected millions of lives. My phone buzzed one more time. Dad again, I'm proud of you. I should have said that years ago. I'm sorry I didn't. I stared at the message for a long moment, then put the phone away. We'd talk eventually. We'd probably rebuild some version of a relationship that acknowledged reality rather than comfortable fiction. But right now I had a job to do. Jennifer, pull up the contingency protocols. Let's start with option 2. It's aggressive, but I think the situation calls for it. Already on your screen, sir. The SUV moved smoothly through Manhattan traffic, diplomatic plates clearing our path. Through the windows, the city glittered with lights. Millions of people going about their evenings, unaware that decisions made in the next few hours might determine whether their pension funds, their jobs, their economic futures remained stable. This was what my family had dismissed as playing stockbroker and shuffling numbers around. This was the cubicle job they'd pitted me for. This was the career they'd spent years telling me to abandon for something real. I almost felt bad for them. Almost. But Jakarta wasn't going to stabilize itself, and I had work to do. The SUV pulled up to the Goldman Sachs headquarters. Security was already waiting, and I could see lights on throughout the upper floors. My team mobilizing, ready to work through the night if necessary. Let's go save some economies, I said to Jennifer, grabbing my tablet and stepping out into the cool Manhattan night. She fell into step beside me. Just another Tuesday for the CEO. Just another Tuesday, I agreed. Behind me, somewhere in Connecticut, my family was probably still processing the revelation. Tomorrow we'd deal with years of misunderstanding and missed communication. Tonight I had more important things to worry about. The automatic doors slid open and I walked into my actual life, the one my family had never bothered to see.